Okay, so we're going to open up to questions in a moment. Just to get the ball rolling, there's been a theme. Obviously, you're all very competent leaders, and thank you very much for sharing your story and insights. We're running a competition at the moment for the top SaaS sales leaders in the UK. Who's the best leader you've worked for, or what were the characteristics of that leader that you learned something from? So starting with yourself, Matthew.
Thanks, James. Actually, do you know what? It isn't one person. It's I think probably I've learned from an awful lot of people. I've had some terrible managers. The first manager that I had was shocking. He was obviously a brilliant sales guy, and they put a brilliant sales guy into a leadership role, and he was terrible. And I thought that was my kind of template for management. Fortunately for me, after that, pretty much every manager I had was an improvement each time around. And I guess as I went through lots of different kind of jobs and roles, I drew from kind of lots of managers and lots of leaders. I mean, there's a big difference between leadership and management, as Karen was saying. I would take from those people kind of things that I really, really liked, and I would also learn from things that I wouldn't do. I can remember having experiences going, that was a really shitty way to be treated. I will never do that to somebody. So it isn't one person, it's multiple people, but and even if you don't work with them, quite often you'll see other leaders doing things which you think are great with their teams, and you kind of just keep taking on board those things. We're all sponges. We keep learning all the time, as Tom said.
Erin?
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it's one person. I know that's not the easiest answer. I think at different times in your career, you need different things. So when I was starting out, I didn't have loads of confidence as per my early, I didn't think I was going to go into sales. So having someone who was constantly kind of building me up after a meeting and saying you did well and things like that, that was really useful at that time, wouldn't necessarily be as useful now. I think from a leadership perspective, there's kind of two buckets when I look at it now. There's people who just excel at what they do. They excel in the room with the client. Watching them is inspirational because of the way they capture people's attention, the way they communicate the story of whatever it is that you're selling. And I love that, and I thrive on that. But those people tend to be slightly different from the ones who build the most trust with their team. Those become a little bit more of a figurehead, whereas I have equally great managers, or have had, who are really excellent at connecting one-on-one with the individual sellers, understanding what drives them, what they need to stay motivated, those sorts of things. So yeah, I think I've taken from each of them. And the bad ones teach you the most. I'm never going to do this. I would never work for someone like that again.
Great. Karen?
Similar. So at different times in my career, I needed different things. I think the best leaders have been people who've invested in me, coached me, sponsored me, and it's not necessarily the same thing, and stretched me. They made me do things I was quite uncomfortable with. It was not in my comfort zone, but that's the only way I was going to learn. So the people who believed in me were the ones that I would say were the best.
Tom?
I'll name somebody. So,
In the room?
Yeah, no, it's not. I worked for him 3 times, so I must have been a glutton for punishment. A guy called Wayne Fonsett, who finished his career running Concur in EMEA. Worked for him 3 times. Worst manager I ever had. But I learnt a ton of stuff from him. I had to have a lot of thick skin to work around him. But, inspirational. His people management skills were atrocious. Saying that, sometimes you don't have to like the person you work for if you're learning a ton of stuff from them. For me, I think nowadays, given if you're a skilled salesperson, you can cherry pick the company you work for. And there's a saying, you join a company, leave a manager. So if you've got a ton of companies you can go and work for, I'd be interviewing the person you're working for more than the company. You can sell it. It's a great product. It's got the right metrics. You've checked it out on the various websites. Go and ask them, what are they going to do for you? You're going to be there 3 or 4 years. If you're staying longer, you're a nutter because you can't, you're not going to get the pay rises you should get. And find out what are they going to do to accelerate your potential in the next organisation. And I love having that conversation with Rex, who joined when I was running a startup. Having that conversation because great, I'm going to sweat you for 3 years. You're that keen, great. But yeah, as I say, interview the manager.
Great. Something I picked up on your piece was around disqualification. And I tend to find people like overly qualify and have happy years looking at their pipeline. There's a hell of a lot of pipeline right now in the room that probably needs to be cleaned out, because we're reporting upwards to our leaders in the hope that they might close. But that's quite a strong word, disqualifying. How do you softly disqualify someone out your pipeline?
Oh, well, there's a Q4 version and there's the rest of the year version. So, any sales leaders in the room, you'll know, maybe a rep can only close 5 deals in a quarter and they've got 14 of them in there. So the best thing to do is just get them ring up all 14 prospects. Tell them that, look, we need to spend some time with you. I've got so much business on. Is there any way we can do this deal sometime next year, maybe in Q1? And if they say yes, say, well, actually, can we move it to Q2? If they say Q2, then it's just dead in the water. They'll never if they can last 6 months without it, they can last another 6 months. That's a great way of disqualifying, because if they say, well, no, I have to have it this quarter, like, oh, that's interesting, what's that? Because so-and-so is keener than you are, and you start playing one off against the other. So that's the Q4 version. For the rest of the year, disqualification is walking towards the door, not slamming it. So, I've used things in the past like, you know what, I just don't think you can afford it. Or, I'm not sure that this is important enough for you to spend the time, effort, resource and money to look at it. Just flip the table to where they're selling to you as to why, you should be involved. And it comes to that buying pendulum. The buying pendulum is 3 through 9. 3 o'clock is where they've kicked you in the backside and you're out the door. 9 is they're screaming for the paperwork and they want it. Wherever they are in that process, you as a salesperson just have to be behind it. So if they say, great, that's a fantastic demo, I love it. Most salespeople would be great. I'll get the paperwork done, list price, you can buy it, and the customer will push back on that. But if you sit behind them, which is great that you love the demo, I'm sure there's somebody else who's going to have to see this before we can move to the next stage. Just slightly behind them, they'll pull you forward if they're ready. If they're not, they'll agree with you. You just keep slowly moving back until they drag you through the process.
Great. Do you have any thoughts on that, Karen?
Hope is not a strategy, ever. And I would much rather know early it's not going to happen than late, whether that's in the month, the week, the quarter, the year. So we have, ask yourself some serious questions, or if your managers, ask the serious question and keep asking. And if I ever get to, well, I hope they're going to, we don't have a deal, right? And I'd rather know early than late. So qualify out early, not late. Do not waste your time.
Aaron?
I have one more, if I can. And again, the most powerful word you'll have as a salesperson is no when you're in front of a customer. No, I'm not responding to your RFP, thanks. It's set up for the competition. Oh my God, do you get a meeting faster than you can? Because nobody wants to think their processes, So yeah, refuse the RFP because it's set for the competition, and I'll tell you why. And you'll get a meeting faster than you can imagine.
Very similar to all of that, because I worked at Salesforce as well for 5.5 years. So constant qualification, qualifying out. No, it's great. It's validating. From a manager perspective, it literally is about asking the same questions all the time. If you've not touched your opportunities, if you don't know the answers, you're not close to it. So we should be qualifying out. Having as your next step, I'm waiting for them to get back to me is frankly bullshit. So I'm not going to be taking that in any of my forecasting meetings. And anything in terms of a red flag, anything that's single threaded, which I find a lot. I work with slightly younger sellers now than I did in my last job. Anytime it's like, no, it's great, and we texted, and I took him to lunch, and okay, great, who else is involved, right? Because that's the biggest red flag in the book, and that's something that's really important to learn early. Who's that person's boss? Who's the finance director? Who's going to sign the actual contract, etc.
Probably being sat at the end of the room, isn't it?
You've said it all.
Yeah, no, just one. I completely agree on the reverse psychology. That completely works. There's a really old-fashioned way of qualifying, which is BANT. Anyone not know what that is? There's one thing I'd add to that, which is banter. Add an R at the end, which is resource. If someone hasn't got the resource to actually implement what you're doing, it's a really good way of letting them down gently without telling them that they can't afford it, or that they're ready, or they've got to come back. Asking those questions around, okay, look, I'm really interested in the long-term success of this within your business. You're buying this not because you wanted to buy this software or had this service. You're buying because you want to solve this problem. Have you got the resource to go and solve that problem, if we did it tomorrow? And that usually qualifies whether that person is properly empowered and ready to make a decision.
Excellent. So before we open it up, just one question with one word answer. or maybe a couple. I'm just trying to frame it now. Someone mentioned superpowers.
Yeah, it was me.
Okay, yeah.
I can't take ownership of that.
Fine.
It's an Amazon thing.
From a sales leader's perspective, what is your superpower? What do people know you for? Do you want to who wants to hit the buzzer first?
So I a bit like Superman, to see everyone naked.
Where are you going with this?
That's what he's got.
Yeah. I think I'm just buying some time to think of a real one. So.
I actually we just did an exercise at work where all of my team kind of said this and fed it back to me, and then I gave my impression, and what came out was direct. So I would say, yeah, I'm very direct. Yeah.
So I get direct a lot, amazingly enough, but I think it means I can see through the bullshit really quickly, whether it's a deal or staff, an employee giving you an issue, whatever. I kind of have a bullshit detector.
Okay. So you're a bullshit see-througher.
Another see-through.
I see value like the Matrix.
Okay. Okay, good. Right,
Do you want a real one?
Yeah.
you've got a real one.
A real one. I wouldn't say it's a superpower, but it is a. If you're a leader, it's a piece of learning that I got a long time ago, which is something called situational leadership. And if you haven't read it, read it. Because if you are, the whole point about leadership, my point, and it's just building what Karen said, is you have to adapt your style to the development level or need of the person that you're leading. And for me, that's a key. And that book transformed me, I think, from being that really shitty manager that I first was managed by to hopefully my team, who fortunately I'm here to argue against it, and say it makes me a good leader.
Right. So can we just have a few questions? Raise your hand. Who's got a question for us? Yes.
So obviously in the last couple of decades, sales is different probably from how it's going to be in the next couple of decades with the change in technology. I think one of you said about your why, and also someone said about being being a speaker, being a keynote speaker. What's the value in staying within the same industry for the whole of your career versus switching in different industries? And would you now recommend someone builds that credibility within one industry, field or customer base, rather than switching, even if they've got the core competency sales skills?
So I stayed in CRM for 20 years and have just moved out when I moved to Aptio. You do create a lot of swagger, a lot of knowledge, a lot of kind of industry expertise doing that. The beauty of CRM is, the last I looked, there was 27,000 companies selling CRM solutions. So you've got quite a bit of choice. So I guess it depends on what industry you're kind of in terms of whether you want to ring fence yourself. However, saying that, I'm really enjoying the pressure of not only joining a new company, but also new industry, new proposition. It's being outside your comfort zone has kind of expanded that learning potential.
So I didn't. I did technology, I did ERP, I did CRM, I've done telcos, utilities, public sector, media, across industry. I'd ask yourself what you're good at and play to your strength. If you're really good at understanding the telco industry or the public sector, play to your strength, all right? If you're really good at selling or at customer relationships, you can hire people or surround yourself with expertise, whatever it is. So what is it that you're good at? What's your why? What do you want to be? If you want to be the world's leading expert on all things public sector, brilliant, stick with it. But you can hire to your, play to your strengths, hire what you don't have. Or surround yourself by the people that can help you do it. And I have surrounded myself by, I'm not a telco expert, I have a brilliant industry team at Salesforce who tell me all the things I need, who give me the playbooks that say what telcos are, right? It's not my expertise. But I hire that in and play to your strength. So I don't think there's a yes or a no.
I think it has to do with your comfort level with change as well, and that you should be really honest with yourself about that and check in with yourself periodically. I mean, for me personally, I've actually switched quite a lot, to the point where sometimes I wonder, gosh, am I moving it? Am I moving the target too much? But that's a personal choice because I like doing it. And the other thing I would say is when you think about your professional and personal development plan, as Karen was talking about, which also will change, right? Every few years it will change as you go through your career. And I always encourage people who work for me, think of a couple different endpoints where you think you want to be in 5 or 10 years, and then work back from there. What would I have to have on my CV, do I think, to get to that point? And that's the way I thought. I mean, for example, I just went to Uber 9 months ago from Salesforce, which was a really difficult decision because Salesforce is awesome. But that's ultimately what led me to it, is that I didn't think I wanted to do enterprise sales management for the next 10 years. I wanted purposefully to do different types of revenue streams. So for me, that was the right personal choice. But, as Karen's saying, if you want to do like media as your industry for the rest of your life, like go at it and think about all the different ways you could get varied experiences within that one sector, because that's certainly equally as valid.
Anything to add?
Just real quick one. I think you can do both. I don't think there's anything wrong. The one thing I would say is whether you're an individual or a leader, you have to be excited about what you're doing. It's a little bit like the why. If you're not going to get up in the morning and think, I'm really excited about going to work today, I'm really excited to sit in front of a customer and sell this and understand what their challenges are, you're in the wrong. And that can happen if you've been in the wrong industry or in that industry for too long, or if you change too often. You've got to be really genuinely excited about what you do. Otherwise, go and do something else.
Next question.
Yeah, I'm interested in following up on something that you said about when you were scaling in your team, or scaling in your sales team, that your team was concerned about being disintermediated by technology. So I would like to hear from you, what sales roles are going to be disintermediated by technology in the next 5 to 10 weeks? And which new roles do you think we will have in 5 to 10 years in sales that we don't have today?
Yeah, no, it's a good. I mean, first of all, if I had the definitive answer to that, I'd probably be at a VC and be investing in all of those companies. I think it depends on the industry. I mean, public sector selling software into that is not going to be disrupted as quickly as retail, for example. So there's all sorts of factors that play into it. For me specifically, I think, I don't know, it's tempting to say, like, will BDRs, like people who generate outbound leads and things like that, will that go away because technology will do that sort of thing for it? I don't know that that's true, if it will be binary in that way, but I think ultimately what will happen is we will shift the skill set for every one of those roles. So the way I was talking about my sellers and then having the freedom to flex a different skill set than what we traditionally had trained them to do, which is, here's your territory, please tier it, prioritize it, here's your activity rates, et cetera, which is a playbook that's worked for a long time. We're going to have to sit down and think, okay, what do we actually want them to do? And I think it's going to change the profile of the people that we bring into all of these businesses. And I also think it will change the progression path, because right now the progression path is you do inside sales or you're a BDR, and then you become an AE, and then you move up to bigger deal sizes and things like that. And I'm not sure it will be that linear in the future. I think it will be more like a jungle gym, as Sheryl Sandberg says when she talks about her career progression. So I think it's going to require flexibility on all our parts. I don't think it will be as easy as, oh yeah, now our computer does all of our outbound calling, and so we don't need to do that. Or I go to a website and enter in my requirements and it spits it out. So I think it will be interesting for sure. Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah. From someone who's quite early in my sales career, mentorship is a big part of how I plan on progressing. My question is, what value have you placed on mentorship throughout your career, and at your level now, are you still placing value on mentorship?
Huge. It's absolutely huge. And the trick is really understanding, as someone who's going to be mentored, what you really want to get out of it. And that, I wouldn't start with, I want to move from this career to this career or this job to this. It's really being clear what matters most to me in my life, first of all, and then what matters most to me at work, what am I good at doing, what am I not good at doing, what do I want to be. And then really look around for a mentor who you think you can get along with personally. It's never your direct manager. It's normally not in your leadership chain. It's normally going to be someone who's out there, and don't rush to it. I remember looking for a mentor, and I had a recommendation to someone. It was a political recommendation. It was to make this person feel like they were of value to the company by mentoring someone who is an upcoming kind of person. It was terrible. So you, as the person who are going to be mentored, you need to think really carefully about what you want out of it and the kind of person you want to get out of it. And even now, I am still being mentored. He doesn't really know it, but by somebody, because I kind of ask him questions, have a chat with him. Maybe he does. He's quite smart. But yeah, so always just keep going. And again, a bit like a bit like jobs as well. Use different mentors in different industries. These are great events for finding people that you can network with. And normally, a good mentor is someone for whom there's nothing in it for them. They're not interested in anything other than helping someone coming up through their career.
I've got a view on that as well. So actually the situational leadership stuff, S1 through to S4, read the book, learn it. You can go to your manager who should be a mentor for you and describe to them how they're working with you today, and you'll want to be an S3, S4. That's the empowering kind of area. Predominantly S3. That won't mean a lot, but when you read the book, you'll just be blown away by it. The second thing is when I was at Oracle, they had a mentoring program, and you're right. I took somebody who was in the development organization as my mentor, completely away from sales. They give you such a bipolar perspective on what you're doing and how you're addressing, how you're approaching things. So I'd recommend taking somebody outside of sales, or at least consider that. And even now, leadership is a lonely place sometimes. Everybody kind of looks up and all you can see is the horizon. There's kind of nobody there. I have an external mentor I go and speak to who makes me feel stupid quite regularly because invariably you have the answer, which is the beauty of mentorship. So yeah, if you're willing to make the investment, find an external third party who you can go to speak to, a career coach, somebody you know, trust, maybe through your network, who's completely... The third thing I'd say is find a mentor where it's actually a win-win. Your mentor won't stay with you for very long if you're their detractor. Yeah, if you can give something back to them, whatever that might be, find out what they're looking for from being a mentor. See if you're that person. I turned down 3 or 4 mentors at Oracle before I settled on this person. Okay. Important role.
Great. Well, if we could have a round of applause for all our speakers.